Welcome to Historic Johnson Farm, one of just few historic farms in the nation owned by a school system. This is the front of the Interpretive Center, built in the 1990s as a place for visitors to meet and get an introduction before entering the historic area. You are standing in front of the farmhouse, built between 1876 and 1880. In 1874, Oliver Moss, a tobacco farmer from Spartanburg, South Carolina, bought 500 acres of land from the French Broad River to within 5 miles of Hendersonville. He hired Riley Barnett to build the house, but Moss only lived here until 1888 when the tobacco market collapsed. Moss sold 310 acres to Robert and Mary Woodfin Leverett and their 6 children for $4,000. Sally Leverett Johnson, one of Robert and Mary's daughters, married Leander Johnson and moved across town where Leander worked at a sawmill. Leander suffered an accident at work and ended up dying with what we now believe to be blood poisoning. He left Sally with 2 younger sons, 5-year-old Vernon and 1-year-old Leander. She tried to make it on her own but ended up moving back to her parents' farm and eventually buying the house and land in 1913. The Johnsons still operated a working farm, but they also opened up their house for summer guests to stay. The cost was $5 a week, which included a room and 3 meals a day. Many guests came up from South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to escape the summer heat and mosquitoes. Many of them stayed the whole summer and returned every summer after, becoming almost like family to Vernon, Leander, and Aunt Sally as they called her. The Johnson farm became such a popular place for guests that Vernon and Leander built this boarding house to accommodate additional summer visitors. This house is much simpler than the main farmhouse, but it was only used during the summer, so it didn't need heat or insulation. There were 11 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms here. Families would usually stay in one room. Children did not get their own room. Boarders were expected to help out around the farm while they were staying here. Some people might collect eggs while others helped milk the cows. It wasn't all work, though. The porch here was used for dancing, corn shucking, and making and eating homemade ice cream. The left side of this building, the smokehouse, was one of the first buildings on the farm. It was used to dry and cure meats. The right side, Etta's quarters, were built by the Johnson brothers as summer quarters for Henrietta Presley, or Etta as she was known. A local girl, she helped Aunt Sally during the summer with the cooking and the cleaning. Instead of going home each night, it was easier for her to stay on site. Her quarters included a living area, bedroom, and bathroom, which she called her palace, and Etta worked here for 33 years. The farm's laundry room is on the back side of this building. Laundry wasn't included in the $5 a week price, but some guests paid Etta to do their laundry. During the busy summer months, Vernon and Leander often had to sleep wherever they could because all the bedrooms were rented out. They were known to sleep in the barn loft and in the chicken house. In 1933, Vernon built himself a little cottage with his living space on top and his wood shop down below. He was a great woodworker and made all sorts of furniture, some of which can still be seen in the main house. Many of his pieces he gave away to friends and family. Even today, some of the people he gave pieces to are returning them to the farm. Once Vernon died in 1978, Leander moved into the cottage until his death in 1987. This is the oldest building on the property. Riley Barnett, the builder of the main farmhouse, lived here while he was constructing it. Originally, the farm granary and later a space for storage is now a replica of a 1-room schoolhouse, so children on field trips can compare schools during the early 1900s to schools now. Vernon and Leander attended a schoolhouse named Rugby School, which is where the middle school across the street gets its name. Sally Johnson died in 1958 and the brothers closed the boarding house. Former boarders still love to come visit, though. Nearby, West Henderson High School was being built, and Vernon and Leander would walk over and watch the construction. They helped with the landscaping and the building of the football stadium. They became friends with the principal, Mr. Glenn Marlowe, who later was superintendent of Henderson County Public Schools for 20 years. Vernon and Leander never married and had no direct descendants, so their friendship with Mr. Marlowe led the brothers to leave this farm to the school system when Leander died in 1987. Owned by Henderson County Public Schools and managed by the Henderson County Education Foundation, the farm is a place for school children and the general public to come learn about the Johnsons' legacy. Vernon and Leander built this barn in the 1920s to house their dairy cows. They built the loft above, which housed the hay as well as many different tools and items the brothers collected through the years. Children who stayed here remember playing in the barn loft and building tunnels out of hay. There were even holes in the floor to drop the hay directly below to the cow stalls. Vernon and Leander were even known to sleep in the barn loft if they had nowhere else to go. The barn currently houses the farm's donkey, Lester and April, and its goats, Oliver and Riley. Feel free to say hi to them. They love the attention. This goat here is Riley. You can remember him by his cute floppy ears. Here is Oliver. You can remember him by his cute little beard. This is April. She is snacking on some grass. Now we have Lester. His favorite is dandelion greens. He also loves giving kisses. Under the tarp in the garage is the Johnsons' 1955 Buick. Before this car, they had a Model T. This is one of the farm's newest additions, an apiary maintained by the Henderson County Beekeepers Association. This is the potting shed where Vernon and Leander would experiment with seedlings. After a fire in Pisgah Forest, the brothers donated some of their hemlock saplings to help the forest regrow. Here is a small corn crib where corn was dried and stored. A corn crib is a type of granary used to store and dry corn. The corn is placed in the corn crib still on the cob after harvest. They generally have slatted sides to allow airflow through in order to dry the corn and keep it dry. Corn cribs were invented by Native Americans but were quickly adopted by European settlers. Do you see the rings of the branches growing around the tree? You can tell the age of the tree by counting the number of rings. White pines grow another set of branches for every year that they are alive. You may also notice that the lower half of the trunk has no living branches. This is a biological strategy the plant uses to avoid being destroyed by forest fires. Poison ivy, or Toxicodendron radicans, is a common North American plant. It produces a chemical called urushiol, which generally causes a red, itchy rash when touched. Poison ivy grows in the form of either a trailing vine or a climbing vine. It is easy to identify poison ivy because leaflets always grow in clusters of 3, and these clusters also grow on alternating sides of the vine. Although this description matches many plants, it is still best to avoid them just in case. Leaves of 3, let it be. Fallen trees are often dragged off and used for firewood in order to preserve the beauty of the forest and keep warm. However, it is still important to leave some dead trees where they lie because they are of vital ecological importance. For example, a tree could become a hollow log, which is a great home for small forest mammals. The rotting underside and inside of the tree also provides food and shelter for insects. Most importantly, as bacteria and fungi decay the wood, the tree's remains break down into vital nutrients for future plants, such as more trees. Azaleas are flowering shrubs that are closely related to rhododendrons. They are especially famous for their flowers, which are in bloom for about 2 months. There are so many flowers on a single azalea plant that they look like solid mass of color. Azalea blooms are so beautiful that there were actually azalea festivals in America and Japan. While that pile of scrap metal and wood might just look like trash, it actually had a function at one point in the farm's history. During the Great Depression, farmers could not afford to throw anything away. Whenever they had equipment that had either been broken beyond repair or lost its functional use, they would throw it in a junk pile, in hopes that parts of it could be used for future projects or jobs. A wheel from an old wagon may one day replace the broken wheel of a wheelbarrow. Thank you for watching this virtual